welcome to Mr. Paul's Pantry. I'm Mr. Paul if you've not seen me before, but if you're a returning visitor, it's very nice to see you, and a warm welcome to anybody new. Now, before we start, if you want to be reminded every time I put up a new video, if you go underneath where it says subscribe, or in the bottom corner, then you'll get a little bell icon showing. And if you click that, YouTube will contact you every time I put up a new video and you won't miss one. Okay, now today's recipe is something that I've never made in the bakery at all. Mostly in my videos are things that I've made all my baking life for the past 60 years or so. But this one is one I never made in the bakery and didn't even know about it until I moved to Spain some years ago. And it's a Portuguese speciality. It's a Portuguese custard tart. And it differs in the English custard tart in one or two ways. First of all, the pastry, the case that it's in, is a puff pastry case, unlike the English one, which is a short crust. And the filling is a little different in the recipe. It's got some cornflour in, and it's got some vanilla extract in, things that don't go into an English custard tart. But the important thing is, an English custard tart, the mixture goes into the pastry cases raw, just as you mix it. This recipe, you cook this filling before you put it in the case. Okay, so it's a simple recipe, delicious when it's finished, and I'm sure you'll have a go making it and enjoy it. So let's get on with it, and I'll show you the ingredients and then how we go along making them, okay? So the ingredients are simple. We've got 1 whole egg, large, 2 egg yolks, large, 2 tablespoonfuls, that's level, I've used a measuring tablespoon, 2 level tablespoons of cornflour. Sugar, now sugar, the recipe shows 115 grams. I have adjusted that because I'm diabetic and I don't use a lot of sugar. You can adjust the sugar to your liking, make it a little less sweet if you like. They like things very, very sweet in Portugal and in Spain. I don't. But I am making the recipe as per printed underneath the video. It's 115 grams of sugar. You can use Custard or granulated, it doesn't matter. And I've got some milk, which is 300 grams. I've weighed it, mils or grams, but bakers always weigh things. And I've got just a teaspoonful, that was a bit too small to weigh, a teaspoonful of vanilla extract. I'll just go through this again. 1 whole large egg, 2 large egg yolks, 2 tablespoons of cornflour, 115 grams of sugar, 300 grams of whole milk, don't use skimmed please, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And the better the vanilla extract, the better the taste. Don't use vanilla essence, for goodness sake. Now, the recipe is all written underneath. A lot of people write to me afterwards and say, I missed this, I missed that. The recipe is written underneath the video where it says show more. Click on that and the recipe will open up. It's also a written recipe and the directions on my website at mrpaulspantry.com. You can have a look at them either place. Don't try trying to remember what I'm telling you here now. I want you to watch the method, okay? That's the most important thing. So, and on top of these ingredients for the filling, I've got some pastry case to make. Now, for years, I've made tons and tons of puff pastry. I can make it with my eyes closed. But for a small amount like this, even myself as a lifelong baker, I would just go out and buy some. It's just as good these days. You can buy all butter or you can buy vegetarian. Now I've got some here. I've got some all butter, which is pre-rolled. You just open it out and cut it. You don't have to roll it even. And that's from the supermarket. That's fresh. It's not frozen. I've also got here some vegetarian. Now this has no animal fats in it whatsoever. The only problem with it is you have to thaw it out and roll it. It comes in 2 slabs inside there, 250-gram slabs. I couldn't remember the weight. So that's the vegan, not vegan because you're using eggs, sorry. That's the vegetarian pastry, and that's the all butter puff pastry. So you can use either. Don't be afraid, and please don't write to tell me that I should be telling people to make their own pastry. That's the last thing I want to tell people to do, because a lot of people don't like it, and it means if they don't like making pastry, they won't try this recipe, and they'll be missing out on a very, very nice little tasty treat. So let's get on with what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is add all these ingredients except the milk and the vanilla essence in here. Okay, we're going to add the sugar, we're going to add the corn flour, and we're going to add the whole large egg, and we're going to add the 2 large egg yolks. And with a whisk of some kind, it doesn't have to be a balloon whisk, you can use the ordinary type whisk, but what I need you to do is to mix this gently and keep mixing it until it's nice and smooth and there are no lumps. Okay? Just gently round. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the milk into a saucepan, and we're going to bring it to the boil, gently to the boil. We don't want to boil it a lot, just bring it so it's just coming to the boil. You'll see it start bubbling around the edges in a short while. Now as you can see, it's just starting to bubble around the edge. It's coming up to the boil now. I don't want it to boil rapidly, and that's just about enough. It's just coming up to the boil. It'll start coming up any second. Okay, so we're going to remove that from the heat, and we're going to add this now. Let's move my camera a little bit. We're going to add this now to the egg mixture, egg and sugar mixture. Stirring all the time. Okay. We're stirring all the time until it's all incorporated. And then we're going to add this back to the saucepan. And we need to be stirring that now all the time. It's important we keep stirring that, otherwise it'll stick, and we don't want that to happen. Keep it on the move, keep your spoon into the corner of the pan so it doesn't start sticking in there. And we stir that now gently until it thickens. Now it's just starting to thicken now. Keep it on the move, don't forget. We don't want this to cook too long, just to thicken up nicely, because don't forget it's going in the oven again once it gets into the pastry cases. There, take it off the heat now. It's thickening up nicely. You can see it's starting to change consistency. There we are. Now once we have it like that, what we're going to do next is we're going to put this back into the bowl. I'll just move my camera again because I'm sorry to keep shuffling it about. There we are. This goes back into the bowl now, all of it. Whoops. Give it a good stir with the whisk. Make sure there's no lumps sitting about in it. There we are, lovely. Now, the next thing is very, very important. We don't want that to cool and a skin to form on top of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some cling film, some plastic wrap or whatever you call it where you live, right? And we're going to place it on here, but the important thing is now we make sure it goes down and touches the custard. It sits on top of the custard. Sticking to the bowl there, just a minute, there we are. Just push it down so it sits on the custard, so there's no gap between the plastic and the top of the mixture. Can you see that? It's all covered. Now we leave that to cool completely now before we do anything else with it. And I'll show you what we do with the pastry next. Now when it comes to doing the pastry and the cases, we need, for this recipe, a 12-hole deep muffin tin. I've only got a 6-hole muffin tin like this. Well, I've got 2 of these, but you can get 12-hole ones. But that's the sort of thing you need, which has quite a deep in there. And this needs to be lightly greased, okay? Show you what we do next. So, I've got my pastry rolled nicely into a rectangle. Just make sure it's not sticking. And I'm going to use a cutter like this. It needs to be big enough so that when you press the pastry in, there's enough to come up the sides of the muffin tin, okay? So we're going to, for this tin I need 6 of these, right? And then I'll do another 6 for my other, to use the other pastry and the other mixture. So these are now going to go into the tin. Like this. Just press them down gently. Oops. Just make sure they're into the corner, that's all we need. You don't need to try and make anything fancy with them. Just pop them down and push them into the corner like that. It doesn't matter if you see some folds like this because it is puff pastry and we won't be seeing that shape anyway. Just make sure you don't make any holes in the pastry. That's the important thing. So now we've got these ready like this, we'll come to the filling. Now if you remember, we put the cling film on here and it is touching the custard right the way along. We're going to remove that now. No skin formed on the custard, which is exactly what we want. But at this stage, now it's cooled down and not before, we never put it into a hot mixture. We're going to add in the vanilla extract. And then I'm going to give that another mix just to make sure it's all incorporated. Now I personally, my own personal preference, I don't like the taste of vanilla. In the bakery we hardly ever used it. In fact, we only ever used it when we wanted to hide some taste of something that we didn't like. It takes a lot of taste out of a lot of flavours out of a lot of other things. So there's the custard, all nicely mixed, and I'm going to put this now, I'm going to use an ice cream scoop. That's what I'm going to use. Just make sure you can see that. You just use a spoon if you haven't got an ice cream scoop. And we need to just almost fill those cases like that. There we are. Nice smooth custard, you can see. No lumps. and that's going to go in the oven now at a very hot oven at 220, no fan. I don't use a fan. I have a fan oven, but I turn the fan off. I don't use it ever. It's because in the bakery none of our ovens ever had fans, so I've never been used to using one. It's 220 I'm setting my oven at, no fan. I think if you've a fan oven it needs turning down to 200, but you'll have to check with your booklet for that, okay? And they're going in for 20 to 25 minutes, really until just we see the custard start charring or browning in little spots, okay? I'll be back as soon as they're out of the oven. Well, here they are. They came out of the oven and I've let them cool down for about 5 minutes, okay? Because when they come out, the custard is puffed right up. I've just let it settle down. And as you can see, they're very, very nice, well cooked underneath, no soggy bottoms. So, if you have any questions, any suggestions or any requests, go down underneath the video and you will see where it says comments. You can leave comments, questions or suggestions. I do read every single one of them. I can't promise to answer them all, but I do answer as many as I possibly can. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed, go on the button there. Press the little bell icon and you'll be informed when I put a new video up. And I'm afraid that's all I have time for today. So it's Mr. Paul saying bye for now, and I'll see you next time. Bye!